Now let's finish up the engine of our vehicle. Alright, so let's go ahead and just concentrate on this piece for right now. I'm going to go ahead and add an edge loop right in here. I just want to keep this shape when we smooth this, so I'll add an edge loop in there, and also one right across here, down here as well, and also right along there. And now I want to create a bunch of sections in here. So what I can do is, under Insert Edge Loop, I go to Multiple Edge Loops, and let's set this to 8. And now I can go in and create an equal number of sections on there. I'll turn that off. And now what I'd like to do is take all of these faces, and I'll just select all those faces on the top. I'll leave off the side, the faces on the side, and I also want to do the same thing on the bottom. Let's go ahead and select all of these, and I'm just going to create some sort of vent holes here. Let's go ahead and select all of those. And now if I extrude this, it's going to come in and extrude it one piece. So I'm going to turn off Keep Faces Together, and that'll allow us to extrude each of these faces separately. So now if I come in and scale these in, you can see how that's now working on all of those individual faces. Okay, so I'll go ahead and extrude that one more time. Okay, now I'll extrude in and in again. And just push that in a little bit farther. And you can go ahead and smooth that to see what that's going to look like. If you'd like to have, you don't want your holes quite so rounded, you can come in here and insert an edge loop right along there. And then I'll tighten that up just a little bit. Okay, now we can start to add some detail out here. So now what I can do is offset this edge loop, create an edge loop on either side. So I'll choose Offset Edge Loop, and I'll create my edge loop there. And now I can select, let's select part of these, and let's go ahead and leave a couple faces there. Go ahead and select all of those. Okay, and then we can extrude those out. And I want to undo that. Make sure that you turn back on Keep Faces Together. And now we'll extrude that. And extrude that again. And again, you can check that, see how that's looking. This just adds a little bit more detail to your engine there. And we can smooth this to see what that's going to look like. You can see we need to tighten up that corner. So let's go ahead and tighten that up, as well as this one. Right down here. And then we try to smooth that again. It'll look a little bit better. And we might want to even go ahead and add another edge loop right in there, just to make sure that that's nice and tight. Alright, let's also add kind of a little piece up here. So let's take these 4 faces, go ahead and extrude those in, and then pull those kind of straight out. A little bit of detail up there. Tighten that up with another edge loop. Okay. And you might want to go ahead and pull down this geometry. We're starting to get to where it's not matching up anymore, so we'll come down and start to pull some of these edges down. And pull these down here. And you can do that when you're in your smooth mode as well. Just grab that point and just kind of pull it down. Okay. So now we want to add some detail along the side here. Let's go ahead and duplicate this guy, and I'll center my pivot, and let's move it off. Don't freeze your transforms, keep those right where they are. And now what I want to do is create high resolution geometry that follows along with this curvature. So I'm going to go ahead and say convert smooth mesh preview to polygons, and that's going to give me a high resolution mesh here. I'm going to go ahead and delete basically half of this because we don't need this half, and I'm just going to start deleting things that that we don't need. Okay, so I think that we don't need the back here, and we don't need any of this. Another thing you can do, you can just actually select what you do want and then shift select everything else. So say if you want to grab these sort of vents up here, maybe just 3x3 sections, maybe in this case 2x2. You can just grab those faces, and let's go ahead and grab kind of all of those faces in there, and that will allow us to decide what we want to keep. So right now I'm selecting what I'm going to keep. Okay, and let's also select some geometry up here. Okay, and now if I hold down Shift and drag a selection across there, it'll invert that selection, and then I can just delete that. Okay, and go in and delete anything we may have missed. And so we have high resolution geometry that now follows the contour of that a little bit better. Okay, we can separate this by just going to Mesh, Separate, and that'll create individual pieces of these that we can now work on. Okay, so to create a single vent up here, we can go ahead and select those faces. Or we can go ahead and insert edge loops here, right along there. We can take these and extrude them. Take the sort of the outside framework and extrude it out. And now we want to create the sort of venting across there. So we can either take our insert edge loop tool and again use multiple edge loops, and this time maybe we'll just use 4. So something like that. And then we can take the rows, basically take every other row as we move down here. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect, but and then you can kind of move those in and maybe up to create that sort of a vent look. Okay, and it follows along the curvature of the engine so that when we move it back up there, it'll fit very nicely. On this one, I'm going to go ahead and add some edge loops again along the framework. I'm going to turn off that multiple edge loops and just add one along the bottom and on the top, and then also around the sides here. Okay, and then I want to decide, I'm going to basically delete kind of every other row, I think. So go in here and select these, basically every other one. And we want to end it on a full piece, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And then we'll do every other one. It's up to you. I mean, a lot of this detail you can kind of do whatever you want to. Just kind of showing you how to get those pieces to match up with that curved surface. And I'll go ahead and delete those. And now let's take all of these guys. Go ahead and select all of those. Okay. Let's go ahead and extrude and scale those in. Okay, and let's extrude again and just pull those out. Scale them down a bit. Okay, and you can always kind of smooth that out to see what that's going to look like. Okay, let's go ahead and add some edge loops in here to kind of hold this shape. Now be aware that if you do this, if you've got low enough resolution, which we do, you're probably going to get some little bit of creasing in there. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, what you could do is smooth this again. So if we say smooth, and this time we will turn on preserve geometry borders. I'll go ahead and smooth that out. Okay. And then if we smooth that, it'll give you that kind of a look. And then if you want to, you can come in and sharpen it a little bit more by coming in here and kind of messing around with that. And you can see the difference here when we smooth that between the sharpness there. All right. So once we get all of this detail, now I'm going to continue and kind of do the same thing up here. On this one, you can kind of do what you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and extrude that, kind of extrude that back. Actually, let's extrude that out this way. And then we can kind of pick different pieces here and extrude those out. And just create an interesting sort of shape here. Just some sort of a detail, and you don't even have to smooth it. You can just leave it kind of tight like that, or you can add some resolution in there so that when you do smooth it, it'll have a little bit more of a interesting shape. Okay. So once we take our group there and move it back, just zero that out, and we may have to move these things out a bit. So we take this and center our pivot, can kind of just move it out a hair, and then you can see how you have these pieces that now match up with the engine. Okay, so feel free to have some fun building some of those pieces that that kind of match up there. And then once you're done with that, you can just duplicate that over to the other side. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish up this engine. In the next lesson, let's go ahead and add some interior detail to these vents. And you've probably seen the scoops and the vents here with some kind of vertical lines. We're going to do something a little bit different on the scoop and also on these vents up here. A little bit different type of detail. So we will tackle that in the next lesson. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and just finish up what we've looked at here on the engine and get that all taken care of. So we'll come back in the next lesson and work on those vents and scoops.